nationally agreed.
Based on what comes to them.
What President Tinubu has done is not binding on any state, because he's in charge of federal workers.
Yeah.
The state governments are in charge of their own workers, and you can negotiate based on your ability.
But you can't negotiate below. Once it's signed into law, you cannot negotiate below the law, below 70.
But
you can negotiate. They can negotiate on consequential adjustment, but the minimum wage is something that no state is permitted by law to go below.
The laws are made for human beings, and each state of Nigeria knows what it makes per month. If you want to insist on certain things, then you have to do what they call right sizing, or you sack people. And we know what that means in this current economic.
And that's why the president then said he will try to assist the subnationals, for them to meet that.
You see the organized private sector. What are they saying? That's going to be difficult.
Yeah,
that means a lot. Of course, there are some private entities that pay more than that, but they have a body. Manufacturers Association of Nigeria and so on and so forth. They know who is weak, who is strong, who is this and that. So you cannot have something that is universally acceptable. What the federal has done, quite good, but every state should begin to negotiate. Do it, I keep saying it, do it the way the president has done it. Make the data available, let them see. See, it becomes a crisis when you're trying to hide certain things. This is what we make as IGR. This is what comes from federal government. If you have liabilities like debts, loans and all of that, let them show it. Maybe you inherited some, the ones you do yourself and all of that. Then listen, most of the people that argue, on behalf of labor are not fools. So they will see it and then you agree. When it is not a crisis, there is no point for trouble. But when it becomes, a crisis, that's when wahala starts. This president has been able to resolve this. Everybody can copy, if not everything, a part of that.
Yeah.
Not every state, because as at the last time I checked, more than half of Nigerian states didn't pay the last minimum.
That is why I have constantly suggested that the law should change. Because the fact that they are not paying does not mean that the law has not mandated them to pay. But it is difficult for state A to pay what state B is capable of paying. All fingers are not equal.
Yes.
So if we don't amend the law, as I said earlier, this minimum wage law will be a joke. Because in the past, states could pay. In those days when the minimum wage was
18,
even less than 18,000, some were not paying. When it was 7,500 and even below. So, but now it is clear that states that have found it difficult to pay 30,000, you are telling them to come and pay 70,000. Many of them will simply refuse to implement.
Wow.
And there is no method by which we can compel them to pay, despite the fact that the law says that there shall be a minimum wage and that the Minister of Labor has the responsibility to enforce it. Every employer of labor must pay that minimum wage.
Yeah.
You see that was why I think during arguments in the National Assembly, some lawmakers suggested that states should pay what they can afford.
Yeah.
Which, in my view, is what Yusuf suggests. That states should pay what they can afford. States should be allowed to pay what they can afford. But Labour rose up to say, no, if states are permitted to simply pay what they are convinced they can afford, then the law will have been breached. For me, we will continue to have this law obeyed in the breach, except because what Rivers can afford, Ekiti cannot afford.
How do we how do we reconcile the story from Edo when the governor said he was paying 70?
It's meaningless. He's paying 70. Can others pay 70?
Okay,
that's why I say that's his own state. That's his own state. They don't have the same number of workers. There are some states with far less number of state workers than maybe Lagos, for example.
Yeah.
So the resources available to states differ. Okay. A state that there are states in this country that do not make a quarter of what Lagos makes as internally generated revenue in a month, in a whole year.
Yes.
I know states that are struggling. Even Anambra the other day, the governor was saying that they are struggling to do 2 billion. It's their goal to do 2 billion a month.
Wow.
What is 2 billion a month when you compare to Lagos doing in the region of 50 billion in a month?
2 billion a month.
Yes. That's nothing to what, because when you talk of IGR, the next subnational to Lagos is Abuja, not Rivers. Abuja's IGR is higher than Rivers.
All right, all right.
Yes, because I saw the whole the computation. So what Abuja FCT can afford, Zamfara cannot afford. That is why it will be difficult, and for some of those states, they will simply fold their arms. Those who have not paid 30,000, you come up with 70. So instead of having a situation in which we make laws that are not implementable, that are not enforceable, why don't we take a second look at the law and see what we can do? States should be permitted to negotiate individually with their workers. People will say, no, what is Jide saying now? But I believe in not deceiving myself. Because if they fail to pay, what are you going to do? The federal government will not go and be arresting governors. They have immunity.
That's it. But gentlemen, is it right, therefore, to say that state governors admit at this time that there's need to top the salary of workers?
No, nobody has said that they should not top. But remember, they said they could do 62,000.
Okay, yes.
And when they said they could do 62,000, I remember something. I think it was the governor of Oyo or someone else that said the federal government was trying to make states look bad. Because every time federal government expressed a desire to pay over that sum that was agreed, at the level of the committee, the states who are represented in this tripartite committee by the federal government felt that the federal government was not bearing them in mind. The Oyo governor talked about the fact that, federal government is not superior to state, but federal government has far more resources than them. So they felt that, look, you are negotiating, you are making it look like, look, this you can pay. But you are not bearing us in mind. You are making, and by insisting that you can pay an amount of money, you are making states look bad. You are making people to think governors are such bad people who are not prepared to lessen the burden.
They are not considering.
Yes. So the states, yes, and that was why I asked at that time when Labour was asking for 250. I said, if you're asking for 250, come up with your facts. Come to the negotiation table to say, look, we have looked at what comes to individual states every month.
Yeah.
And even after states have sorted out such big spenders like environment, as clearing of refuse and the rest, health, education, and all the sectors. This is the surplus that is still available.
Okay.
We believe that within this surplus, they can conveniently pay 250,000 per month. And I said, it is when you have done that you will be able to convince people. But you've not done anything like that. You've not sat down to say, let's do some computation to show that these governors are lying. You've not done anything like that. You just invented figures and said, okay, they must be able to pay. You started from 1 million. You came down to around 750. From 750, you came to 615. From 615, you came to 400. From 400, you came down to 250. Now, and reality has dawned.
Many Nigerians who are not too schooled are impressionable at a time like this.
Yeah, everybody just felt, no, they can pay. It's a lie. They can pay. But for me, I believe that if all the states, because look, let's face it, there's a lot of dead wood in the civil service, in the state, and even at federal level. Nigeria can do with less the cost we expend on bureaucracy in our country.
It is a choice.
We can do, let me tell you, there are some ministries where you find, or even some department or offices, where you have 9 drivers to 3 cars. So how do you deal with such a situation? It means that a lot of people are idle, and if people are idle, they are not offering any value to the system. It's better to let them go, so that you can pay a living wage to the people who are left. But carrying the dead weight and acting like there is nothing wrong
is merely deceiving.
But don't you think the labor will grant the system if anybody wants to do what you are talking, because right sizing is what you are trying to say?
Yes, they will.
In this state of our economy, sending people back to the labor market, you know what it means.
So somebody did it in Lagos. It's a matter of time. I'm not saying they should do it, but it is not impossible, because somebody did it during his first term. And that person is the current president. He right-sized the Lagos civil service.
But at the end of the day, but at the end of the day, when you look at each of the states, just as you keep saying, the amount of money that comes in is not the same with federal government. Even when you look at national revenue alone, the federal government takes over 50%. The states, I think about 26% or something around that. Then local government, 20%. So just a look at this alone. Go around Nigeria, not all the states are commercially viable.
We know.
We need to take view on this. If it means amending the law, but these 70,000 now shouldn't be binding on the state or the local government. It should not be.
But that's what the law says.
But it doesn't make any. We are coming from the military era where everything is, centralized. It shouldn't be.
Unless
in a democracy, it should not be.
No, unless it's amended. It's supposed to be binding, but you and I know that nobody has ever enforced it.
Because by the time the states are not paying or local governments, it will be our job to,
all right, gentlemen,
talking about them.
Let's deal with the